Shalom. I am out on a walk and I have a thought of the day I want to share. I was initially going to try to record it with me in the video because I felt like that would make it more engaging, but I had so much I wanted to say, I'm like, I'm not going to remember all that off the top of my head. So I just decided to make an audio so I could better look at notes I have. So take a listen and I hope you get something really good from it. See you later.
Shalom, may all be well with you on this day. Let's talk about discernment. I've had this topic on my heart for several weeks, and I've finally gotten around to organizing my thoughts about it. My hope is that you take away something from this message that truly helps you navigate and strengthen your discernment so you get better at making choices that bear good fruit in your life. Whether you're already conscious about the importance of discernment or you've never really thought about it much, and hopefully with listening start thinking, okay, discernment. I think I should get more of this in my life. That's my aim here. I hope this really resonates with you. So here we go. Simply put, discernment is the ability to identify and often understand things as they are. It's a view of the truth about something or someone that's not tainted by how we want or don't want things to be. And many times it's talked about in the context of identifying something bad, but it just as much applies to identifying good things that we didn't initially see. Discernment is a necessary ability you should develop because it always leads to serving your well-being and the well-being of others when you're in a position to help people. It's there for you to gain guidance and protection. When you go through a lesson or more that gets you to the point of discerning a particular thing well, you will be able to identify it more accurately and quickly in the future so you can respond to it appropriately. Knowing how to identify and respond to things appropriately, meaning with wisdom, is what's going to help guide you in the right direction for any situation and protect you from harm or causing harm. I think the biggest barrier to discernment is fear. By that, I mean resistance to facing some type of information or experience that would distress us in some way. If we have fear about facing certain reality or truth, we're going to resist those inner inklings and tangible signs that make its existence known. I'd also say another barrier is genuinely being oblivious or naive sometimes. When we're not familiar with certain things, they're just outside our radar of consciousness. We're usually not going to know them when we see them. Your ability to grow in accuracy and quickness of discernment hangs on your level of comfort with and desire for truth. You have to develop a genuine preference to know what is true, no matter if it'll reveal something good or bad that's contrary to what you already think. Think about situations when it started being brought to your attention that something or someone wasn't what you thought. You want to be aware of your pattern of response. When it starts coming to light that something isn't right like you believe, do you have a tendency to push those inklings and signs aside multiple times until you can't ignore them anymore? When it starts coming to light that something is right despite what you believe, do you have a tendency to resist those inklings and signs repeatedly until you can't deny them anymore? Your discernment functions freely when you're not too attached to seeing either the bad or the good in situations. If you lean too much toward wanting to believe the best, seeing the bright side, that hinders your ability to pick up on the bad aspects you need to recognize about something or someone. Like if you're doing a business endeavor that you're really invested in and just tunnel vision about the good you want to come from it. So you overlook red flags that reveal this endeavor is actually not a good fit for you and maybe isn't even a good endeavor at all. Or like if you envision you and someone partnering in some way, whether a romantic relationship or working together, and you just have this positive outlook on their potential in this role you want them to play. So you're not rightly assessing what their interest and skill set really is, which would show the truth is they're not ready to go where you're trying to go. Optimism is great, but not when it blinds you from reality. If you lean too much toward wanting to believe the worst, seeing the dark side, you're not going to correctly notice the good aspects about something or someone that's presented to you. Like if you have strong apprehension about moving to a new place because of all the challenges that would come with the process, and you don't have family or friends that live out that way, so you keep missing several clear indicators that this is a very good time for you to make this move. The right resources are showing up, and what's available in this new place will better position you to thrive in life. Or if someone's trying to get close to you and showing interest in being there for you, but you always keep in mind the crap you've been through with people who were close to you and were supposed to be there for you, yet instead majorly disappointed you or straight up put you in danger. Because of that, you're not picking up on behaviors that show this person has been consistently respecting and supporting your needs and wants, keeping their word, and sharing meaningful parts of themselves with you for a good amount of time. So you are in a safe space to give them more trust. I've found that the truth can reveal itself in two ways. It can be with multiple hints right up until the cat's finally all out the bag. And those are the situations where we can feel really blindsided if we aren't paying attention. Like you kind of sensed something, you kind of saw some things, but it didn't seem real big and blatant, so it wasn't hard to just keep overlooking it until you couldn't. Or the truth can reveal itself by becoming increasingly obvious until all you need to know is in the full light of day. It may start off very subtle, and then the evidence starts being highlighted brighter and brighter as it's coming in. And I think noticing your tendencies in those situations, when things are the opposite of what you want to believe, is how you can easily check where you're really at with accepting the truth. When the reality of a situation becomes increasingly obvious, do you find yourself holding on to your perception ever so insistently past several inklings and signs that get clearer and clearer until the truth is right in your face? And when the truth is now standing there shouting, "This is what this is. This is what's going on here," do you still find yourself even then somewhat resistant before you finally accept the reality? You need to know this about yourself if this is your tendency, so you can figure out why that is and get that mode of operating out of you so your discernment functions freely the way it's meant to for guidance and protection. Even if it happens where you're like, "I'm sensing something, but I don't know how to call it," still pay attention to that. Pay attention to when you feel some type of difference between your initial perception of something or someone and what you're now sensing. You're either going to find out you're correctly onto something or you misunderstood something. And either outcome is information that's beneficial for you to know. Now, let me tell you, discernment has been a pretty strong quality of mine and one I've embraced for a good portion of my life. However, I've run into quite a few experiences where it was uncomfortable for me to operate in it. It's one thing for me to be receptive to picking up on something. I'm normally open to noticing how things are said and done in low-key ways or sensing unseen elements going on in a situation. But it's been another thing for me to always have the clarity and confidence to respond accordingly to what I encounter when the evidence isn't concrete enough to prove it. And maybe you too can relate to this predicament. It's much easier to stand on a decision about how to respond when you got concrete, undeniable evidence. But for me, it's been hard to be just as strong in a decision when the evidence is subtle or ambiguous enough to seem reasonable to deny and explain it away. And some people may think, yeah, it's always best to wait until everything's concrete and out in the open before making a firm decision. But no, a lot of times, if not most times, that ability to discern truth about something or someone kicks in, if we allow it, before solid evidence is very visible on the surface. That aspect right there is what's mainly made some experiences awkward or distressing for me, probably you too, primarily when I'm discerning something bad, especially if it kind of catches me off guard, especially if it's about a person I like. I'm still learning not to question myself initially in those situations and just focus on gaining the clarity that'll help me confidently make the right decision. This may be a part of discernment you have to get better about too. You may be someone who has a hard time relying on information you get through a feeling or inner knowing because you know feelings can be misleading. And it's hard to rationalize how we can just know something without concrete evidence or without us being taught about it. But if we really examine how we come to decide some things, we'll find many of our decisions that turned out to be good are influenced by what we received through feeling or an inner knowing, more than because we got concrete evidence beforehand. When the concept of doing this is at the forefront of your mind, you may be resistant. Yet, on the other hand, when you're not conscious of it, you don't notice how often you actually do act on unseen or unspoken information when it's strong and clear enough to you. If you delay responding accordingly until there's concrete evidence, many times by that point, it'll be too late. Whether it's now that person you thought you could trust stole from you, or you missed a job that came with even better opportunities than you knew up front, or you passed up on making a great connection with that person you actually have much more in common with, or now that car you haven't even had a year is giving you major problems. There you go. Now you know the concrete evidence. But what did waiting for that cost you? Again, the primary purpose of discernment is guidance and protection. So the aim of discernment is recognizing the nature or condition of something or someone before whatever outcome that would put us at a disadvantage, or maybe someone else we could help. Because of that, you'll have situations where you're discerning some underlying things and other people don't see it. Like, you may be the only person that's identifying what the truth is. That could be for several reasons. Everybody's level of discernment overall is different. People's clarity with discernment can fluctuate depending on the who, what, and when involved in situations. You're more likely to pick up on things better than others when you're more closely involved in a situation or when certain actions are particularly directed toward you. And I think sometimes it may be meant just for you to discern what you're discerning at the time. It often happens that more evidence about the things we discern come to light more clearly over time. That's why I firmly believe discernment is a spiritually rooted ability, because the things that are veiled to us in this realm are seen clearly as they are in their true nature or condition in the spirit realm. There's no hiding from the Most High Creator. As the source of all things, He knows all things down to the microscopic details. So while we don't see everything as clearly as He does, He has designed us with that attribute of Himself that knows and is truth. So we're able to keenly sense what's true beyond the surface before it fully rises to the surface. And I believe the Holy Spirit, which is that close presence of the Most High with us, is the key influence to building up our discernment to be particularly strong. So, because discernment deals with identifying things that aren't fully visible, sometimes things we may be encountering for the first time, it's important to remember you will make mistakes. It's part of the growth process for all of us. We all make countless mistakes with things that are fully visible, fully tangible. So we're definitely going to get things wrong at times when we're dealing with sensing, feeling beneath the surface stuff. You're not alone in that. But don't let fear of being wrong hold you back from learning how to discern. Receive as much information as is given to you or you're led to, and carefully consider it. But if you misjudge, it is not the end of the world. Getting correction is still information too. So just accept it, acknowledge your mistake, and make whatever other amends may be needed, right? Because what you don't want is getting stuck in a mindset of, oh, I can't trust myself because I really thought I was right about this situation, but I was wrong. Now I look silly. And maybe you were wrong in a major way. No matter how many times you found yourself coming to the wrong conclusion, it is not true that you're incapable of developing trustworthy discernment. Again, your ability to discern is from the Most High. He gives that to you, to each of us, in his wisdom and love. So he's not going to give you something and leave you out here ill-equipped in using it. As with any skill or discipline, continuing to practice is what's going to increase your strength and refine your precision. Just like with exercise or some type of athletics, our body is capable of doing so much more than we recognize. And a lot of times when we try to do those things, we're going to get them wrong when we're starting out. In some of those situations, many of us have had thoughts like, I'm not good at this, until we kept practicing and saw we became better than we thought was possible as we continued learning from our mistakes. And one more thing about developing this ability and it functioning freely. The better we discern ourselves, the better we'll discern external matters, right? So beyond assessing if you tend to stick with a rose-colored glasses or doom and gloom way of thinking about the world around you, you should practice discerning your own self. Who am I really? What condition am I really in at this stage of life? What's the real reason I made that decision? This is related to what I said earlier about fear being the biggest barrier to discernment, in my opinion. We're naturally inclined to protect ourselves from things that are contrary to how we view ourselves. But if you really want to become a better version of yourself, two things that are going to happen is you'll start being more self-reflective and self-aware as you grow. Those are qualities that build up discernment and will cause you to identify things about yourself that are going to lead to some challenging questions about yourself. Like when you recognize your actions and motives and/or your goals aren't lining up. So you're going to be confronted with things about you that are very uncomfortable to acknowledge or embrace. And as strange as it sounds, some of those things could actually be positive. Certain positive aspects of yourself may feel really foreign to embrace because of experiences you've had. But if you can overcome fear of facing you, because when you learn uncomfortable truths about external matters, you can often distance yourself afterwards from the persons or things involved if you want to. But when it's all you, that takes a higher level of courage to face uncomfortable truths, because before or after, you definitely can't escape you. So if you overcome fear of discerning you, that will translate into you being less resistant to discerning who and what you encounter externally. And lastly, for this message overall, I just want to touch on discernment in regards to spirituality, since it is a spiritually rooted ability. Nowadays, people are very openly into gaining all types of spiritual knowledge and power. We're questioning and seeking a lot of information, which isn't bad to a certain extent. It shows that many of us are embracing how deeply connected we are to each other and something much bigger than ourselves. Just like we've accepted that our emotional, physical, and intellectual growth is important, we're accepting our spiritual growth is also important. So we're openly learning and talking about it more. As you go through your own journey in this area, remember that spiritual maturity and authority requires wisdom and discernment. Discernment and wisdom are sometimes used interchangeably, but they're not exactly the same. I describe the difference as discernment is more on the side of processing information and wisdom is more on the side of applying information. So being mature and having authority as a spirit-led person is more than how much information you gain and to what extent you can exert your will with it. How well do you understand why, how, and when, if ever, certain spiritually rooted principles and practices should be done? How well do you identify and understand from the Most High's perspective, good and bad, right and wrong, which is really about what's functional and dysfunctional? And as you identify correctly and understand properly, are you becoming consistent in applying that appropriately? The answers to those questions make up the measuring stick you should use to check your progress with discernment and wisdom, right? Which reveal if your spiritual growth is going in the right direction. The goal is for us to become aligned with the source of all things, about how He made all things to be. And it is not an easy process, as many of us are learning. So all of this is about being intentional with learning to identify and understand people, things, situations as they are, their true nature, their true condition. We all want more success than setbacks with our relationships, from family to friends to romantic partners, our jobs, our finances, our health, our inner growth, right? We want happiness, peace, progress, stability in different parts of our life. So we need discernment to help us make better choices, wise choices that give us protection and guidance. Yes, those choices can be hard to face and are sometimes painful, but that's okay, because ultimately they'll work out for our well-being. So that's it. These are my thoughts for today about discernment. I really hope this message gets your wheels turning about some things and is very helpful to you. Be well and catch you next time.